that was disappointing. I have a few areas I want to go over in today's video. My name's Woody. Jake's got me on to discuss some of the standout stats each week. So let's get into this week's Moorabbin metrics. Normally I'd start with the positives, but I don't have a ton. So we're going to start in the midfield because 6 centre clearances just isn't good enough. And we may as well start with the guy that actually got the most of them in Rowan Marshall. With 16 disposals, 9 of which were effective, 4 centre clearances and 2 goal assists, he wasn't our worst for the day, but with 0 tackles and marks and just 5 of his 55 ruck contests resulting in a hit out to advantage, he was soundly beaten by English, who got 17 disposals, 12 being effective, 5 clearances with 3 being centre clearances, 1 goal assist and 9 hit outs to advantage from his 51 ruck contests. Marshall just hardly looked like the around the ground ruckman we've come to expect of him, and if I'm honest, I think that's kind of the bare minimum for a ruck that doesn't often give our mids first use. When we did get the centre clearance, we managed to score 2-2-14 to the Dogs 3-2-20, but if we look at around the ground stoppages, we only managed 1 point to the Doggies 7-2-44. So let's get to the rest of the mids. I try to avoid calling out specific players in plays, as I think players can provide a reasonable snapshot of what happened in a moment, but often a moment or two isn't enough to discuss a player's match. That being said, I'm going to make an exception as he is our captain and we need to talk about Jack Steele. In my opinion, Jack just hasn't really been up to it this year, and look, I'm sure most of it's because he's still dealing with body issues, particularly that knee, but some of his efforts yesterday just weren't up to standard. So let's touch on a couple of those moments. This moment is right after Higo's goal in the first term before we went missing for the rest of the match. Here we see Steele is lined up on Bont, English tacks it over the top and the ball gets out to Karmas, and when the camera zooms out, we can see that every one of their mids are leading ours to the next contest. Thankfully, Caminiti marked it, but if that ball went to ground, that would have been very hard to defend. The next centre bounce, McRae went to Bont and Steele is on Freya. Marshall wins the tap this time, but Steele and McRae both get sucked into the contest and the ball spills out the back. Freya is too quick and is able to tap the ball inside 50 without ever taking possession or really any pressure on him. I wanted to show you those moments as there was times Steele just looked a few steps behind the pace yesterday, but with 16 disposals, 11 effective, 2 score involvements and just the 1 turnover, it does suggest that he wasn't the reason for our chain breakdowns. But we need more from our centre mids, particularly our senior leaders. If we look at overall turnovers for the match, yeah, we didn't do too bad, matching the Dogs on 57 each, but we only had 71 score involvements across the whole team. Only these players had more score involvements than turnovers, and these players broke even. So that leaves Hill, Garcia, Schoenmaker, Naz, Caminiti and Jones who turned the ball over more than being involved in scoring chains. While I'd normally give the younger players a pass, it is becoming a widespread problem. When we look at overall turnovers for the year, Darcy Wilson leads the comp with 42, and if we move to disposals per turnover for the league, he's equal 12th last. And while I do think he can be one of our better outside players, if we get more granular, when we look at who turned the ball over most and who got the most meters gained, they're basically the same people, and most of them are our outside runners. For me, this highlights 2 things. The inside 50 problems that have plagued us for a while now, but also how we just weren't finding our teammates from rebound 50. Essentially meaning that all of our ball movement was problematic because, as I mentioned earlier, we only got 6 centre clearances and 1 point from stoppage. We let the Doggies outmark us 131-85, and while we did win the contested marks 10-7, which was our highest for the season, I'd argue that was because we bombed it long to the contest too often, as we only had 9 marks on lead and marks inside 50 to the Dogs 10 and 21. It was mentioned in the broadcast, but many of our turnovers were in the defensive half, which means that everybody was out of position to defend the next entry. This is supported when looking at our centre clearances versus how little they scored from centre clearances. While we were beaten, it was only by 1 goal. This, coupled with the fact that we got the most rebound 50s for the year, suggests that when we exited the defensive 50, the players felt like they were under pressure, making them look for distance, losing retention, and creating a feedback loop. This led to our lowest inside 50 count since versing Adelaide. No, not this year, in round 11, 2016. To put that into context, that was Gresham's first year, so in some respects, I'm willing to write off parts of this match as an anomaly, but only if we can find some form, and I'm not going to hold my breath. Finally, I want to touch on a stat that I've noticed. Every match this year that we've lost, we've also lost the possession battle. And in terms of wins, Port's the only exception. Now, I'm not saying it is the be-all and end-all of stats, but I do think we need to focus on possession, particularly in the first half. If we consistently take short marks on leads, switch the ball, and only attack when open, we force the opposition to chase us the whole time. As opposed to trying to create fast breaks via overlap running and handball receives where possession is rushed, and later in the game, we see plays like Brad Hill getting run down by Libba because not only is he aghast, but so are all his targets downfield. I fear I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record by the end of the year, but we need to take shorter marks when the pressure is on. Kicks between 15 to 30 metres have the highest retention in footy, and kicks over 40 metres drop below 50%. And in my opinion, should really only be used for deep attacking entries and maybe a last resort defensively. That about sums up my major points for the week. If you want to see more of my face, I've got my own channel at Wooden Spoon Data. I did say I was going to put out a video last week, so sorry it's not out yet. I've almost done everything, but might still be a week away. It's one I've wanted to do for a while, so I want to get it right. Keep your eyes out when it does finally drop. Either way, I'll be here every week to go over some of the standout Saints stats. I want to thank Jake for having me. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Go Saints.